I'm going to go ahead and hand the microphone off to our first speaker, CaptCrackle, who's going to be doing a talk on speaking tech to executives.
Thank you. So, I'm going to try this without the microphone, so if you can't hear me, just scream. If whatever. For the peanuts in the back. Okay. I'm in the front. Yeah, same thing. Okay, so a while ago I put something together of talking to executives. It's not something a lot of technical people are very good at. Me being one of them especially. Speaking to groups is very difficult for a lot of us. Again, huge introvert, so I do that myself. So as I've learned how to do this over the last far too many years, so says the screen there, I kept taking notes of, all right, here's the things I've screwed up along the way, and the genesis of this talk was to help other people not make the same foolish mistakes I made. So here we go. I'm going to set this down just because I have notes because my brain just does not work like that. So starting off with kind of who am I? Why am I here talking to you guys? Why on earth would you want to even listen to me? So that one's still debatable. I've been in IT for about 15 years, and then I got bored and I made the switch over to security. A lot more fun and play with cooler stuff and meet all kinds of wonderful other people. So doing that for about 9 years. My careers really started everything. I'm a generalist. So done SOC work, done security analyst stuff, engineer stuff. Right now, I have a Mac that's annoying. Please don't go to sleep, damn it. If I swear on the video, I am sorry.
We're falling asleep too.
Yeah. If you want what's on here, you can have it. Trust me, there's nothing but cat pictures. Right now, my day job, I'm a solution architect. So I look at a business and design security solutions that fit their needs, because no two organizations are the same. They all have common threads, but without getting too far off topic, I do some virtual CISO work. So a lot of the organizations we work with don't have a CISO. They have an IT guy or they have an IT manager, and that's it. They usually have no clue on security, which is why they're talking to me. Obviously, incident response, playing with some malware. Most of y'all are much smarter than I am. So I love learning from all of you guys and everybody else, because I think everybody can learn something from anybody. So that's a little bit about me and my thought process. And since this was converted from a keynote, let's see what happens. Okay. So we'll dive into the executive perspective. So we as technologists don't necessarily jive with them, because we think in details and intricate things and exactly how stuff works. Most executives are in the position where they may want to know everything about a subject, but they don't have the time. So you figure they're looking at all the different departments, operations stuff, finance, HR, and just go down your list of departments. And there's only so many hours in the day. These folks work 24 hours a day. I get phone calls at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night from CEOs all the time. And it's usually, hey, I have a question about, and trying to talk to them about that and keep it high level and understandable. Because if we go into technical stuff, they get lost and they stop listening to us. So really, they understand organizational risk. And I'm going to run through this and do Q&A at the end, but if you guys really have a question, I'll try to take it here. Hopefully without derailing my train of thought too much. My brain is kind of Amtrak, so we'll see what happens. Organizational risk. So what is the risk to my organization? Is this going to cost us money? What is this going to do to us? Physical risk, obviously the usual thing. If you're in manufacturing and you make really heavy objects out of smaller objects, and one of those falls over on somebody and squishes them. I know, gruesome, but it's kind of reality. They understand that because it's a physical thing and it's plain. Obviously, financial forecasts, if I have, if I'm a CEO and I'm trying to sell something to somebody, it's, okay, I need to make a widget. A widget costs me X dollars. I can sell that widget for Y dollars. There needs to be a profit margin in there. That's really as simple as it gets for them. I'm not a financial wizard. I try to avoid the finance people other than being nice to them because they, one, pay us all, and two, they control all of our budgets. So, squirrel. Make friends with the finance team. So, I will go off topic on occasion, but one of the things I've run into is understanding things like shadow IT. We understand what shadow IT is. It's, for those in the room who may not be really familiar with it, it's places where IT comes in and money goes out to pay for it, but the IT team doesn't really know anything about it. Or more importantly, the security team has no idea it's out there. So somebody in HR got lazy, or marketing's probably a better group to pick on just a little bit. They'll set up a Dropbox because they want to share some files. We don't know, we as security people don't know what they're putting in that. They could be putting sensitive stuff and contributing to organizational risk. At the exec level, that falls under organizational risk. So that's where make friends with the finance people, because you can go to them and say, who's spending money on Dropbox? And say, we know about 3 of these, why are there 4? And go chase that down. The CFO will love you when you do that. And their last thing is mitigation. So, how do I fix the problem? So, when they say how to fix the problem, it's at a very high level. Not necessarily in things like firewall rules, if we need to tweak this rule to do this, because they don't get it. It's not their job, that's our problem. It's a matter of saying, hey, if we have this risk to the organization and we put in a better EDR tool, we've mitigated the risk. That's really as deep as they need to go, and this is really going to get entertaining. This is what I get for not plugging it in. Okay, so, and obviously there are a few cat pictures in this. Why? Because cats. Got the other notes.
If you need an outlet, there's one right there under the car.
Nah, that's all right. It's got enough battery, and I'll just keep making a fool of myself. I threw this out here. Cyber risk does not fit the model of the executive understanding. That's our job. So our job is to take that nerdy, gory, detailed, cool stuff that we like to play with and put that into English for them. So most of us do not speak English, and it's a challenge. So being an introvert, one, standing up here and talking to a sea full of people, even masked people with furry masks on staring at me, it's unnatural. And there may be extroverts in the crowd. I am not one of them. I'm betting probably half of this room isn't. So, sorry? Oh, don't worry. All right. Okay. So, really the next big topic is when you go into a meeting with senior leadership, board members, the C-suite, ask yourself a question. What am I doing here? Because that's going to tailor the conversation and the words that we need to use to convey what we're after. Am I trying to sell a new project to these folks? So you're basically sales team. You're saying, hey, we don't have proper logging in our organization. So you may have on-prem servers and 365 and Okta and all kinds of crazy stuff. And you say, well, we've just never put logging in place. Logging, I'm going to pick on Splunk because I use it a lot, is really, really expensive. I see nodding heads, so some people have paid the Splunk bill. Now we have to go to the business and say, we need this thing. It's going to cost, and I'm going to use round numbers. This is going to cost us $100,000. Now,
as the executive team, remember what I said about we sell widgets. It costs us X to make them, Y we can sell them for, the profit. We may have to say if a widget costs $1, we need 100,000 widgets to go out the door just to pay for this. It's more than that, but I'm trying to be simplistic here. So we have to give what's the value proposition, and I'm going to get struck by lightning for using salespeople terms. But it's important. The next one is a status update. So there's an ongoing project of something. This is where we start to get from the salespeople are helping us to now we're supporting ourselves and our whole teams. When we're trying to update somebody on something, this is where we fall down. So most executives, I said earlier, have crazy busy schedules. These people work constantly. When they're, damn it, I'm just going to have fun with this. I'm just going to talk for a second, and then I'll come back to that. I won't unlock it. If you can get 30 minutes of an executive's attention, you're doing really, really well. Usually it's about 15 minutes. So what do we need to tell them? Hey, here's, and it goes back to those risk things. We're working on a project, we're X far along with it. They also love problems, but they love problems that come with solutions. They say, hey, we are stuck at trying to get the vendors to respond to us, but this is how we're dealing with it to get them to come back and talk to us. I'm going to lock that because when I look, the TV will go off. So, and I'm going to try that. And, you know, that one's a pretty easy one. The other one, and this is where this gets complicated because your audience changes drastically. If we have a security event or an incident, notice I don't use the word breach. This is something that legal, I've had my nose bloodied on this dozens of times. Legal hates the word breach because that means lawyers and lawsuits. So we don't ever use that word. I tell my clients this, I tell my internal team this, especially the junior folks, when they're on an update call for an incident, they'll say, well, we're working on the breach this, and I usually ping them on Teams and say, stop using that word, just delete it. Because, and I am not a lawyer, I don't play one on TV, nor will I ever watch one. Events, incidents, do not have the legal implications. Reporting stuff, regulatory stuff. Again, execs understand regulatory requirements, that they have them, and what they are. Our job as technologists is to comply with those and make sure that the business is doing what it's supposed to, or they know about it with a plan to fix it. So I'm underscoring something I'll come back to. If you're giving an update on an incident, you're probably not going to have the finance team. You're going to have people like general counsel, outside counsel if they have it, or some form of legal. You're going to have communications team. So without getting too deep into intricacies of that, we always tell people never, ever, ever talk to the media. Let the communications people do that. You want to get yourself in a lot of trouble, get trapped by the media. Short story, one of our team was a retired FBI agent. I pick on the FBI because we work with a lot of them and they're just really fun people most of the time. But I won't use the acronyms because I can't be mean. We sent him off to an incident response for a municipality. And if I pause to think about things, I'm trying to make sure I don't implicate something I shouldn't say. He was working in the municipality, came out of a building, and some media person shoved a microphone in his face because he was wearing a suit, he looked like he should have been there, and he was carrying a backpack probably full of heavy things. He made the mistake of talking to them. Didn't give any great details, but it was on the local news the next morning. That causes problems. So when we're doing that, just keep in mind of who the audience is. And also, you don't want to speak finance to the legal people. They just get angry. Mostly because they don't understand finance either. So, biggest one. And I'm going to throw this out here. This is actually one of my college professors slash mentors slash really good friends a long time ago. He looks crazy. He was crazy. But crazy smart. Like a lot of the people in this room, smart people. We like acronyms. We know things, and acronyms are all over the place. We use jargon all the time. I always tell people, just leave it outside, because if you start shooting off acronyms and things like that, they're going to stop you. Say, what does HTML mean? What is TCP? We don't know. And then you've derailed your conversation and you've lost your audience. Again, I am not good at presenting. It takes a lot of energy to do it, but we have to stay focused. Great one. I found it works really well for them. Physical examples. So if we're explaining the network, use road analogies. Pick one that works for you, works for your audience. They like cars. If you're trying to explain how systems integrate with each other, they're not going to understand or care that the web server talks to the app server that talks to the database server and all that crazy crap. Do a car analogy. Or if you're building something, houses. You start with a foundation, you put walls up, you put roofs on it, windows in it, internet to it, and then screw the rest of it. Yeah, and it's my note really is executives don't live in a tech world. The closest thing to tech world they get is they're sitting on an airplane and they're reading the in-flight magazine. They're reading the Wall Street Journal. So where you're going to get a lot of questions, or at least I get a lot of questions, is when they read some article about ransomware. They don't really understand it other than somebody wrote it and said, this is going to cost you a lot of money when it goes wrong. So they land and they say, what are we doing about ransomware? If you start telling them about your backups and encrypting, you just keep it general. Use stuff like that. It's great for examples. And it lets us talk to people without getting too far in the weeds. Remember what I said about 15 minutes. Really, if you've lost them in the first 15 minutes, you're not getting them back. So, here we go. I found this. I don't know where I found this picture. I kept it. I love it. Go into a meeting prepared. Where a lot of us get in trouble is you get snagged, or you say, well, I can just talk about this off the top of my head. No, you can't. If you notice, I'm standing here with an iPad with a bunch of notes I made, because I would get lost already. So, again, personal thing. Come with solutions to problems. They don't want to hear you whining about why things don't work and everything is broken and the world is bad. Let's face it, we're in a negative profession. But they absolutely love it when you come in and say, here, we have a risk or we have an issue, and here's how we want to solve it. And if you come in prepared with what you need to show them and what you need to pay for it and how to implement it and how long it'll take and that kind of stuff, well thought out, maybe not the perfect plan. It's okay to say, we're a little fuzzy on this bit, but as it comes through or things change, they're usually happy because they're problem solvers like we are. They just solve different problems. So we like solutions. Most of the time, I figured I'm going to get some argument for, pun intended, for that second bullet. My experience, your results may vary. Most times when I'm talking to leadership, they're not interested in arguing with people. More than not being interested in arguing, they're not interested in us arguing. So if we try to argue with them about a thing, you've already lost. Remember, they signed our checks, they set our budgets, they pay the bills. We just make it so they can do that. It's a symbiotic relationship. We have to exist together. Phrases like "I don't know." Most of us are afraid to admit that we don't know something or that we don't have the answer.
It's okay to not know something, so long as you follow it up with, I guess I didn't put that on there, but I'll find out. And if you can put a timetable to that, and if you put a timetable to something, make sure you keep it. I run into that all the time with a lot of people say, well, I can have an answer by next week. They don't want to hound you because they're going to make a note on their notepad of, I'll have an answer to this question by next week. They don't want to chase you. Chances are they won't. It'll just backfire and annoy you. But I'll find out is a great way to say, and I'll say kind of save face, but saying, I'm not sure, or this is going to be fuzzy, or the variables change. How many programmers are in the room? How often do variables change?
Never.
Wait a minute, they're called variables for a reason, right? So, it happens. This one, I love adding that one because remote meetings. A couple of years ago, the world ended, and now we have to do Zoom calls. People don't enjoy talking to a screen. Sorry? Oh, sorry. Thought somebody said something. Turn the camera on. I love to tell our team that works remotely, I don't care if you're wearing your pajamas. Keep a polo shirt next to your desk. When you got to turn the camera on, and turn it on for as many meetings as possible, throw a polo shirt on. That way at least you look like you thought about something when you got up in the morning. Most of the time they're doing the same thing. Appropriate backgrounds. I think we all heard the one that was about a year and a half or so ago as everybody was off, the judge that had cat pictures or something for their background. We find it funny. Internal calls, I know with our team, I'll put screwy backgrounds up all the time, just because they're funny. My cat, airplanes, stuff like that. Let's see. I know they're dull, but put on just a background, even if it's scenery or picture of a city, something. Anything that's not cat pictures. If I'm looking at somebody and talking to you and your facial expression changes, that's a cue to say, I've either said something silly, said something wrong, or I've confused you. And it's a great way to go back and clean it up and fix it. So, backgrounds are important. Let's see. Notes. Yes, another one. Love my cat pictures. Take notes. This is something that I learned this a bunch of years ago. Of whenever you go to a meeting, notice most people have a notepad with them. They may not write on it, or they may be sitting there doodling because they're bored or they're not engaged. But personally, my memory is terrible for things like that, especially when I'm trying to keep a presentation in my head or trying to convince somebody of a position or brief something incredibly technical on the fly. I love taking notes. I will sit in a meeting and scribble all the time. A lot of times you'll see people hide behind a keyboard. So if I'm sitting in a meeting room, this can't possibly go wrong, and I'm sitting here at a table and I'm doing this, are we connecting? Try not to hide behind the screen. It's one of those things that we naturally do it because, oh, I have this lovely thing here and my handwriting looks like a drunken person with a crayon writing with their foot. Guilty. But taking notes, hugely helpful. You can write thoughts down. Even if you get an idea during a, hey, maybe I know how to solve this now. Scribble it down so you remember it later. Titles, tasks, questions, names. How many people here can remember names? Yeah, oh, you are the two smartest people in the room. I have no idea who half of these people are.
When we were just half.
Yes. So, yeah, fair. I'll write down names because, especially if I'm doing a presentation with people I don't see very often. What's your name? Who the heck are you? Am I talking to
the CFO, am I talking to the general counsel? You may be talking to outside counsel. So, I don't know how many of you are ever on those calls, but I've had 9 or 10 people from the same law firm or multiple law firms representing different interests on the same call. You really want to screw your career? Send an email to the wrong person with the wrong data. Oops, I sent that internal stuff to opposing counsel and not my counsel. Crap. You're in trouble.
Alex Jones?
Nice.
Classified information to 200 people.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong, right? Tasks and questions. You know, hey, if I'm going to point at random people, so please, I'm not putting anybody on the spot. But if I point at you and say, hey, here's a task, a to-do thing, who's supposed to do that thing? Because none of us can do them all. And questions. So somebody may say something, and you say, that's a good question. Or if they had a question where you said, I don't know, but I'll have an answer. Write down their question. Because as much as we're all the smartest people in the world, not me, we cannot remember that stuff. Of course. See, going back to rewatch this, people are going to laugh their heads off. Why didn't this idiot plug the machine in? Or tell the screen not to go to sleep? That's called being prepared, and I wasn't apparently. That's really a lot of the fun stuff. Before I get to the Q&A, I'm going to share an interesting little story because this happened about 2 weeks ago. I got a phone call from the CEO of a small airline. Intimidating guy, but really cool guy. I've known him for years. Worked with him at several other companies. Our whole firm has. But I've done incident response with this guy. I've done the strategic planning and the solution architecture and all those things that I listed earlier. Done it with this guy. He calls me on a Sunday night, and I'm going to go ahead and put the laptop or the tablet down because I don't need it anymore. And he says, hey, I've got a question about email. I have an email address and I can't find it. Sure, I set it up for him. It's forwarding into a folder. After we finish that 2-minute conversation, he jumps out and says, so how are we doing? You know, that goes back to that 15, 30-minute block of this person's time. I'm fortunate that I get those blocks with some people because I've learned some of this stuff over the years and can keep that simple and explain things to them. What he was really asking was, hey, you're responsible for our cybersecurity. He can't keep that in his head. He is not an IT guy, but he likes it. He's got several houses and they're all full of Macs. And they talk to each other, or sometimes they don't. And what does he want? He wants a quick briefing on the big topics, vulnerability management, because we've had these in the board meetings where the board members are asking these, or the auditors are asking these questions. So where are we on vulnerability management, and how's our outsourced IT company doing that causes me endless frustrations, me being him. They irritate me too, but that's not relevant. So I'm going to keep this away. So, you know, but having that conversation with him, we spoke for about 45 minutes, and then there's a little personal banter back and forth, and he went on his way. But I came away with that with 3 or 4 tasks that I needed to do for him, because it was, oh, I don't have the answer to how's our patching doing. But I said, I can find that out tomorrow and shoot you an email. Now, go back to my notes thing. I better write that down because it's Sunday night, 8 o'clock. I'm winding down, I'm watching cat videos on YouTube. So, I don't want to forget that because he won't. And I'm going to wake this up just because it looks silly. Come on, there we go. And I came back to him the next day with, here's where we are on all these things. Really cool guy. I'll be honest, I've made mistakes at that organization. Anybody in here who has never made a mistake just lied to you. We all do it. We're people, we screw up. But if you build that kind of rapport with them, and they understand that they can call you at Sunday night and ask you a question and get an answer that isn't going to make their head spin, when you make a mistake, they're pretty likely to forget it. Or, hey, everybody makes mistakes. That kind of relationship building is really important. And especially when you get into an argument with middle management or somebody in another department and they escalate it, chances are leadership's going to side with you because they know you think things out, you're diligent with notes, and you work hard for them. So, with that, yes, that's my cat again. His name is Chairman Meow. So, questions? Anybody have any questions? Everybody still awake? Yes.
Any question to that? No?
I didn't see.
Or is he thinking, oh, he's giving you time? Are you going to give him time or?
No, I was sure.
Oh, cheers. Okay.
Thank you.
So, so how do you, the surprise call, right?
Mhm.
We've all gotten them,
Yes.
right? The surprise call that comes from the CFO who wants to know about something you've never thought about,
Mm-hmm.
or the console. I get this from console bunch, right? Because they're solving a problem you've never even thought about.
Yes.
What do you do? How do you handle that?
Start with the conversation. And it goes back to, if you don't know the answer, tell them you don't know. But also, I would say, try not to lead with that. Try to lead with a yes. Yes, I'll get that for you. Or, I believe this is the answer you're looking for, or this is what I understand right now. Can clarify that later and get back to you. The other piece of I can get back to you is, when do you need this? And one of my favorite responses to that is, well, I need it yesterday. Happens all the time, especially in incident response and especially with attorneys. I'll usually tell them, depend on how well I know them, if they're just some counsel, I'll just let it slide and say, well, I can get you that by tomorrow. If I know them, if it's internal counsel, I might joke around with them. Again, that relationship and rapport. Well, since yesterday already went by and I can't give that to you right now, when do you really need it? And they'll usually come back with, oh, well, tomorrow, or hey, this is really important, the sooner the better. That gives you the ability to do some sense of urgency. I'm done with the screen, I'm not going to fight it anymore. Sure.
Yeah, I can absolutely second that. I've got quite a few years in military IT. Finding a way to yes has been extremely good for rapport.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if you don't know the answer and you don't think you have time to look up the answer, but you know someone who might, point to them and at least give them a direction to go.
Either point to them or say, let me help you with that.
Right.
Because they're calling you for a reason. It might be a random one, but you know, that's some of that's that control thing. I work for a retired Air Force general, so yeah. Sorry.
I was going to say what you were saying about being like really concise with what you're saying when you're meeting. So I'm a people person. I'm like navigate all that stuff. And so I was talk to somebody face to face. Yeah, you have to talk to, like, you grab their attention. It's like an elevator speech. So yeah, between these two floors, to grab somebody's attention and hold it. In the executive meeting, you might have longer. So like normal person, it's like between 1 and 2, you know. But with executive, because you have more information to convey, you maybe have between 4-1 and 4-4. But grab them and tell them, this is my answer. Try to find out that you have to be like, pretty concise.
Most of the time they're asking you a question because somebody has asked a question of them, and they've done the same thing of, you know, when the auditors are saying, hey, how are you guys doing with vulnerability management? Or God forbid you're dealing with cyber risk insurance right now. What a train wreck that is, right? Those auditors are coming back with a list of idiotic questions. And yeah, I'm going to throw that out there, and that's personal opinion. So, but they still need a serious answer, because I don't know if anybody has done a lot of cyber risk reinsurance now with premiums renewing. I've got clients that are well buttoned up, knock on wood, and their premiums have still gone up 70-80%. So, now the organization is making a risk decision based on what the security team is telling me. Do we look at the risk insurance and say, as an organization, we're going to accept that risk or self-insure? I had this conversation 2 weeks ago, and the organization has come back and said, we're going to drop this coverage because it costs us so much money. Any type of extortion, all data has value. They look at it and say, my risk is $100,000. My insurance costs me $50,000 a year. So every 2 years I could have a data incident. Notice I didn't say breach, and break even. So, and that's something that usually breaks the mind of a lot of us in the room, because we see that as a risk. It has to be fixed, or there is no or. But they have to look in abstracts. Yes, sir.
Then you throw like amortization on top of that to see the war amount.
Yeah, see, I barely understand what that word means. I don't speak finance. So, yes, sir, the person in the purple alien thingy. I've been waiting all the conversation to say that. I love your outfit.
I used to work at a hospital wherein upper management despised IT. And the reason for that was because IT was a sunk cost. It doesn't make the organization any money. And, it's just this money sink because you're paying your people to maintain your network. But you're also paying them to minimize damage if something does happen.
And there's also another school of thought behind that. At the surface, yes, IT is a loss. Except we make it possible for everybody else in the organization to earn a profit. So it's a secondary thing, and that's something that a well-in-tuned finance team taught me. So I'm not that smart. I didn't think of this stuff on my own. Yes, sir.
Do you have a playbook or list of bullet points that you always go through for IR when you're briefing an executive team, or how do you approach this conversation?
Absolutely. I have those things written down. Some are applicable, some aren't. So that goes back to take notes on things and coming with a plan. So when you go into an incident response, for example, what's our first thing? Containment, identification, eradication, remediation, right? I've probably got those out of order and missed a few, but those are my personal 4 big ones. Having answers to those things and having them, I keep crib sheets everywhere. If you look at my desk, it looks like a bomb went off. I do not have a neat desk. I have notepads and scribble pads everywhere and stuff on it. So that's personally how I handle those. Yes?
I converted mine to a Git repo.
Yeah.
I converted all of those to Markdown so that they can be converted into many different languages, but same thing. Now I've just got seriously a Git repo of all of my tasks, to-do lists.
If that works, that's the most important thing. The tool you use to organize yourself, be it scraps of paper, your Outlook calendar, Git repos, text files. I have hundreds of text files all over my machines. Somehow I remember what's in most of them, or at least where the things are. Find a thing that works for you and go with it, but consistent. Anybody else? Yes?
I was going to say, have you ever thought about trying to set the conversation ahead of time by writing an article for the Wall Street Journal or influencing?
No.
That is, you were talking about how auditors are going off the list that somebody else wrote, which is completely asinine. Have you come up with a counterexample, which could be converted into a Git repo and share organizations, so that you can say, look, I know you guys want to do your job, but if you like to use this other repo of questions to use and certify these, so that stop asking to speak the questions?
I'm gonna go with yes and no. There are places to set those. I'm not a writer.
I have an answer for that, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
There's 2 parts to this. So one is to talk to CFOs, you need to understand the languages that they speak and what they read. And there actually are articles in the journal about things like this. So being able to say, look at that article from 2 months ago from so-and-so in the journal, gives you credibility instantly with your CFO, quite literally instantly, because he knows that you then pay attention to his perspective, or their perspective, point the gender, sorry, right? Their perspective, so that is one place. And then there are standards around lots of this. And so when you talk to auditors in particular, if you can go, oh yeah, that's part of, whatever, 53, right? And it's, 53 section 4.2, and we're doing that. That same thing, right? You're trying to streamline the conversation, and so you can get to that same credibility. They know that you're paying attention.
Yes.
Right?
And if you want to rattle those numbers off, I'll frequently just say, yes, we go by the NIST standard, NIST 800. And that's usually as deep as personally as I go into it, because they can ask the question, what subsection? Generally, they either know or they don't care. But as long as you say, hey, we have a framework, we adhere to it, we monitor it, we update it, that's what they need to hear. And usually what they come back with. Yes?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I tend to phrase those with per my last email.
Yeah, no.
That's corporate for fuck you.
Well, yeah, it's corporate for you're adult and you don't read anything I send you. Also known as an insult. Thank you for saying that one, because I worked for another very large organization, and their air quotes CISO, they didn't actually go by those titles, nor did they have one. But the guy who did that function taught me another valuable thing. When you reply to an email or reply all to an email, if you have 10 people on that chain, the email is no longer about the subject, it's about you and who you're trying to impress. Streamline. If people don't need to be on emails, drop them off. How many people here have 50,000 plus things in their inbox? How many of us would be very happy if people didn't send us emails on crap we don't care about?
That's why I have rules.
Exactly. Most of them are just delete. So, that's just another little helpful thing that I've picked up along the way. So.
Mine said OWA, so it doesn't need more.
Yes. So, cool. Any more questions? Thank you for listening to me ramble. Appreciate it.
All right, let's have one more round of applause for Craig.
And the laptop keeps shutting off.